Hey everyone, it's Retro DM Ray. Hope you all are having a great day today. Thank you all so much for your subscribing to my channel. I appreciate the Dungeon Minister and all of the new subscribers recently and all of the other subscribers I've had this whole entire time. It's just awesome to see the subscriber count finally climb above that 500 mark. I'm very grateful. I'm very astonished that that's even happened for a channel such as mine. So I appreciate all of you and thank you so much. I appreciate every time you watch a video that you like it and you do subscribe. If you're on the fence, please come and join us. We're going to build a great community continuing to go forward from here. I'm going to be able to start here soon posting some community posts and some polls and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to that addition to the channel as well. Please share with those that you know, and thank you all for doing that recently. That's been really, really awesome. And I hope you're liking this content as we continue to cover Forbidden Lands. So starting today, we're still working through the character creation process of our coverage, because now we come past the professions and we come to age. So I'll read you what it says about age, and then I'm going to talk about it for a minute. It says, age, the next step in choosing your age. Many adventurers leave their village at a young age, but sometimes older individuals are forced out to hunt for treasure among the ruins. Age is divided into 3 categories: young, adult, and old. You choose your age freely. Write down your choice on your character sheet. Your chosen age category affects your attributes and your skills. Read more about these below. Elves don't age in the normal sense of the word. Technically, they all count as adult. So age in this game is extremely important. Now, I am not a person that abides or sits very well with power gaming or a lot of metagaming, quote unquote. Although a lot of old school gaming was that the players kind of knew information, so the characters kind of knew the information too, and that's kind of how you played. Most of the players back in the beginning days didn't have all of the books anyway, and Gary even mentions, as we've talked about before on this channel, that the Dungeon Master information is the specific purview of the Dungeon Master, and only the player only has the player information. And I think that's incredibly cool and quite lacking in new systems today. But again, if that's your thing, that's cool. You can take a look at Bandit Keep's video talking about this idea of player knowledge versus character knowledge kind of a thing. He does a great job of kind of talking about this same thing too. A shout out to Daniel on his channel as well. Thank you for different comments and stuff throughout this whole time too, Daniel. I appreciate that. So go check out his channel. Go check out the Dungeon Minister's channel. Great guys. Rob at Rob's Game Group, although I think he calls it Adventures in Gaming now, or Adventures with Dice or something. You'd have to find it. But I'll put some links in my page below too to help show you ways that you can support me. And I'll try to get some links to their pages. If I don't find that, you can look back in past videos and see their comments and kind of jump to their page from there. But age here, as I'm talking about in Forbidden Lands, it's pretty important. And the reason why is this. Even though I'm not a power gamer, in Forbidden Lands, your hit points, quote unquote, come from how good your attributes are. Okay? And age sets what your amount of points that you have to spend on your attributes. So obviously the young have more attribute points, and the old have less. The young, though, would be less skilled, whereas the old would be more skilled. Now, that makes reasonable sense. That makes logical sense in its entirety. However, since attributes equal, quote unquote, hit points in the game, then you would naturally want to try to start off with, if you can, a higher ranking in the particular hit point categories that there are in the game, of which they are based on your attributes: strength, agility, wits, and empathy. So those are different things that you can take damage in, and that is technically your hit points. So if you're young, you have more attribute points to start with. And throughout the play in the game, there is no way with experience points that you earn to buy new skills and talents. There's no way to buy attribute points. So if you are so inclined for survival purposes, and since this is a very gritty game with a high attrition, character loss, um, the the choice is likely that you would start off with young characters so that you could have more points to spend on attributes. You'd have less to spend on skills, but that's okay because you can buy new skills or increase skills with your experience points, just like you can buy new talents or increase those talents that are able to be increased with experience points as well. So that's the reason why I say age is a big deal. Okay, but again, you play Forbidden Lands however you want to. You can even randomly determine that if you wanted to do that with just a simple d6 throw of the die, and just slot yourself within either young, adult, or old. Okay. So speaking of those attributes, let's move on to there. Your adventurer has 4 attributes that indicate your basic physical and mental capabilities. Your attributes are used when you roll dice to perform actions in the game, and also how much damage of various kinds you can withstand before you become broken. And more information is in Chapter 5 about that. We'll get to broken and other things as we go along. Starting scores. When you create a player character, you can distribute a number of points across your attributes. How many points is determined by your age, as I said before. You can assign no less than 2 and no more than 4 points to any attribute. However, you can assign 5 to the attribute listed as the key attribute, quote unquote, for your kin or profession. If the same attribute is key for both your kin and your profession, you can assign up to 6 points to this attribute. So if you're young, you have 15 points to spend, adult is 14, and old is 13. So the difference between young and old is 2 attribute points. The difference between adult and young is only 1. But trust me, that 1 can make all the difference. But that's up to you. Again, however you want to play it. So we'll describe the scores to you. I think they're pretty self-explanatory. But this is how Forbidden Lands actually lays out a very simple explanation of the stats. So strength is raw muscle power, brawn, and stamina. So that gives you an indication that strength here is what was strength and con in basic D&D and even advanced D&D. Agility is body control, speed, and motor skills. So that's equivalent to dexterity. Wits is sensory perception, intelligence, and sanity. So that is wisdom as well as intelligence kind of rolled into one. And then you have empathy. That is personal charisma and the ability to manipulate others. So there's a little hint of wisdom there or intelligence there involved, but it's mostly charisma. Okay? And then next we move on to skills. Your skills are the knowledge and abilities you have acquired during your life as an adventurer or prior to it. They are important, as they determine, along with your attributes, how effectively you can perform certain actions in the game. There are 16 skills, and they are all described in detail in Chapter 3 of this player's guide. Okay, and there are actually more skills than that, more than that 16, based on different products that Forbidden Lands has already put out. Or you can see things that people have created at Drive-Thru-RPG to add different skills into the system. I'm not a huge fan of a GURPS level of skills or a MERP, Middle-earth role-playing game level of skill set, because I'm not really a huge fan of skills, quote-unquote, anyway. And so the 16 that's here is more than enough for me as I run the game. But you can add however many that you would like. These skills are measured by skill level on a scale of 0 to 5. The higher the number, the better. Again, when you go up in level, you can buy those up. But even if you don't have a skill, in other words, no skill level, you can always roll for it, even if you don't have a level in it. In that case, you're only going to use the associated attribute for the skill in question, and then gear. And we'll talk more about that later on. But just a note for a moment there. I think in a sense, it's cool that you can just roll your attribute and just kind of try and see if you're, for example, agile enough to perform a particular skill, or strong enough to perform it, or smart enough. And that's okay. But there is a bit of a problem that in being able to do that, then it feels like you take a bit of the uniqueness away from a particular player character. I'll give you a great example. If you are playing a thief, okay, and one of the professions in here, if you remember, is rogue, okay? So if you're playing a rogue, or even if you're playing a minstrel, or maybe even a peddler, as far as like pickpockets would be concerned, or as far as that type of skill, or as far as a bardic type of a skill for the minstrel, or all the rest of the thieves skills, quote unquote, for the rogue. If just anyone could use gear to pick a lock, then the uniqueness of the rogue is considerably lessened. And again, this is just my personal opinion. So being able to roll without having a skill level kind of feels like, to me, all the players around the table would say, well, if he can do that, and he's got a 5 agility, I've got a 2, and it took me all these experience points to be able to get my 3 in my skill. Well, 2 plus 3 is 5, and he's just rolling 5 dice too. Well, that sucks, because I made a couple of levels in the game and earned that XP, and all I get to do is be equal to the guy with the 5 agility. So there's a bit of a challenge there. There's a bit of an issue with that for me. There are ways that you can house rule and fix that. I won't go into the particular way that I do that, simply because I don't want to bias you in that particular direction, and none of this is to bias you in that particular direction at all. You run your game however it is that you would like to run it. You can run it rules as written, or as far away from that as you'd like, or anything in between. But I just thought I'd mention that, because not being able to, or being able to roll without actually having a level in any skill, it just sits a little bit wrong with me as far as the game is concerned. But I do understand, having run it, why it's actually there. So we'll go on to starting skill levels. When you create your player character, you distribute a number of points to your skills. How many points is determined again by your age. You can assign up to 3 points to each of the skills listed for your profession. You can assign a single point to any other skills you choose. You can increase your skill levels during the game. So skill points for young would be 8, adult is 10, and old is 12. So again, age matters, but in the reverse. So the older you are, the more skill points. The younger you are, the fewer. And since skills can be raised, and it doesn't allow you to do that to attribute points, my encouragement to you for survivability is concerned is to, again, focus on starting higher attribute point spending and less in skill. And then as you play, develop more skill, especially since you can roll without a skill. Why wouldn't you want to do that? At least from a player's perspective. All right, talents is the next section. Talents are tricks and abilities that give you a small advantage in the game. They are more specialized than skills and provide you with a way of fine-tuning your character. Talents are described in Chapter 4 in the Player's Guide. They are also special talents for your kin and your profession. At the start of the game, you get a number of talents that depend on your kin, your profession, and your age. Your kin talent, then a profession talent of your choice, then a number of general talents of your choice depending on your age. Every talent has 3 ranks. You normally start the game with 1 in each talent, but you can choose to forego 1 to start the game with a rank of 2 in another. You can increase your talent levels and learn new talents during the game. So young gets 1 talent, old is 2, and or adult is 2 and old is 3. There's a special category of professional talents that are called magical talents. These are needed to cast spells and are generally only available to druids and sorcerers. And you can read more about that in the magic section in the book here in chapter 6. And there are all kinds of talents out there. Different things have provided different talents as choices and that kind of thing. And all of those are pretty cool. When I touch on some of them later on, you'll see some that are a bit more powerful, quote unquote, or more effective, quote unquote, than others. And you'll see that when we cover the talents later on. Another thing here in the character creation process, and the last thing we'll talk about today, is pride. It says, adventurers are not like other people. Leaving a home and family to set out on the way of the sword requires both courage and a conviction that you are an individual beyond the norm. This is represented in the game by your pride, something specific that you are very proud of. It could be an ability, an event in your past, or something else. Your profession suggests 3, but you are free to make up your own pride. Once per game session, you can activate your pride. When you fail a skill roll in a situation where pride is relevant, the GM has the final say, but they should give you the benefit of the doubt. When activating your pride, you get to roll an extra d12, not a d6, an extra d12 and include the result in a dice roll. If you fail the roll despite this, you must remove your pride. You then need to play one entire session without a pride before you get to choose a new pride for your character. We'll read more about that on your use of pride in chapter 3 in the book here. So the example they give is Josie decides that her sorcerer's pride will be, nothing scares me, as I have seen the world behind the veil. Okay. And I just have to say, if you look at this picture right here, how cool is that? Looking for that little goblin dude and for that chick there with the bow. I just think it's really awesome. I think the artwork again here is really good. Nisi does a great job here with this particular line art. But I want to say about the pride, that just makes total sense, right? Because you start out with a particular thing that you're proud about your character, and then you're so prideful that you're like, well, yeah, of course I can do that. And you brag, like Gaston in Beauty and the Beast, for example. You walk around bragging about that, maybe even if it's not outwardly, at least inwardly. And so you try to do the thing that you're prideful about, and lo and behold, it doesn't work. So you fall inside, right? Your depression or whatever drives you that, so apparently I'm not as great with the bow, for example, as I thought that I was. So, wow, that stinks. So you're going to mope around for the rest of that game, as far as your pride is concerned anyway, and you're going to mope around for the next whole session, trying to dig out something else from your past or whatever that you can take new pride in to start the next thing down the line. That is cool, because that is exactly like our human condition. That makes the game kind of feel more real, okay? I really, really like that. And so I'm quite generous with the way the player writes out the pride statement. I kind of let them make it as kind of generic and encompassing as they'd like it to be without going to the extreme, of course, so that there are several opportunities within that game session or the game sessions, if they don't activate it that one session, to actually activate that pride. Because that gives you another roll. And here's the cool thing. So in the game, when you roll to accomplish something with your D6 pool, so that would be attribute, skill, and then gear if it applies and you have any, and you would roll all of those, you can then activate your pride and roll them again. And the first roll, Banes or ones, didn't count against you. And now the pride activation roll, the Banes or the ones, again, don't count against you. And then if you didn't make it with your pride roll, of course you lose your pride. But you could then, if it's really, really a desperate situation, you could then push it and roll a third time. At that point now, any ones that come up on attribute dice or gear dice, those banes, now you're going to have a problem. If they come up as banes or ones on gear die, your gear is going to get damaged. If they come up as banes or ones on your attribute die, the attribute that you're rolling with or associated with the roll that you're making takes damage, and that moves you in the direction of broken and gives you less dice for the next time to roll. But that pride can be that one time of like, I'm going to push it here because this directly applies to, yes, I'm just that good with the bow. So I can hit that thing. So then you roll that second time, and maybe now you get your success, or however many successes the game master would require of you to be able to succeed on the task. Generally, it's always only one. Could be more than that, depending on how incredibly difficult they think the task might be. For example, incredibly strong headwind, and you're trying to shoot in a long range down to your maximum longest range for your bow, and trying to hit an enemy running off into the brush. Of course, that could be more than one success that you might need, for example. And so you've got your success, but then your re-roll is you're going to pick up everything that's not a 1 or a 6, and you're going to re-roll it, right? So that's a possibility of getting another 6. And then the push is the same thing. You're going to pick up everything that's not a 1 or a 6 from that, and you're going to roll that. So again, a possibility for more 6s. And if you activate your pride and it's successful, you don't get to do it again that game session, but of course you don't lose it. And with your pride, when you activate that, you're going to roll an extra d12 and include that in the die result as well. So you're not just re-rolling all the 1s and 6s, you're re-rolling all the 1s and 6s, and that pride gives you that d12. So that's really, really awesome. So it gives you the opportunity to get multiple successes. I'll talk about later how successes work in relation to rolling that higher die, okay? And how many successes a higher number would give you. And that's something that also comes from the One Ring, and I use that, but either way, we'll talk about that as we get later on into the game, or get later on into the discussion of the game. So I hope that you've liked this one today, and that you put some stuff in the comments, like how would you house rule the idea of the uniqueness in relation to you can roll whether you have the skill or not. How would you do that? Are there places where you've seen more talents and more skills in a particular resource? Talk about that in the comments and throw a link there. That'd be cool for us to see that. I'd like to see that too, see if I have those things already. What do you think about power gaming, quote unquote, or metagaming, quote unquote, and picking that age so that you can get more attribute points versus less in relation to that? You know, let's start some good conversation here, some good discussion, and we've had that in multiples of my videos, and I've really appreciated that. So again, thank you all so much for pushing me beyond that 500. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks again, Dungeon Minister, and thanks to all the others that have supported me out there. I really appreciate y'all, and I hope you're enjoying this stuff, and I will catch you the next time, where we will talk about the next set of information that you'll need as far as character creation, and that will be talking about dark secret, relationships, gear, and encumbrance. And we might even talk about consumables, because that's a rule that I really, really like in this system. All right. Thanks again, guys. Hope you have a great day with gaming, and as always, good games and prosper. Take care. Later.